Yeah.
You used to so as somebody who used to work with the police, what do you think about this true crime podcast, TV show thing, documentary boom that we're seeing at the moment?
I don't tend to watch them personally because I tend to look at them and see it from a procedural sort of point of view,
Mm-hmm.
where obviously I dealt with murders, but not in my role because I used to record and analyse a crime. That was my principal role for nearly 26 years.
Mm.
So I would, yeah, we would look at all crimes from the most sort of, criminal damage, thefts, burglaries, violent crime, sexual offences, and murders. So we would deal with everything that came up. And so in those years, I did deal with my share of murders. We didn't have any undetected murders on the island, because nearly all murders that we had one where there was a protracted investigation. It wasn't an instant detection, as it's called, because normally when you find out about a murder, you know who's done it because they're at the scene. It's like you've discovered the murder, you got the offender straight away.
Yeah, yeah.
It's because it's normally domestic or it's drugs
I guess,
related or it's
I guess,
crime
especially,
related.
I guess, especially on the island.
Yeah, and so we had one stranger murder in my 26 years, and they were found, but that was the only stranger murder we had in 26 years. Was one.
Maybe we could become part of the problem. We could do our own true crime podcast. Small Island
Yeah, I
Murders.
look at that's right. So I'm interested in it as in terms of I watch occasionally when I want to find out about the investigation. So big cases that we're aware of, I've watched some of those things like about Yorkshire Ripper and I saw the one about Ray. I forgot his name now. It's gone out of my head. He was the acid bath murderer. Anyway, I've watched some of those, but it's not really something that I watch because I tend to sort of my sort of police head switches back on, and I've got rid of that like Aunt Sally and Wales will Gummidge. That head is gone.
it's it's a bit like a bit like how my wife cannot watch medical programs. Although she started watching.
She doesn't want to watch Casualty, does she?
Oh, she no, heck no. She doesn't. I think it has to be very, very good for her to actually even. And like there's one called Maternal on ITVX, and she started watching that, and she actually quite likes that. Like for instance, what was that show with Ben Whishaw? Is This Is Gonna Hurt? This is going to
Yes,
hurt.
it's gonna hurt. Yeah.
Tried watching the first episode. My wife was like, "No, can't do it. Too real." And I
Well,
just
we went to university with him, so
yes, that. Well, we went to the same university, but he wasn't there at the same time we were there, was he?
it was.
He was. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh well, never know. Yeah, medics. Who
We
knows?
we have many mutual friends.
Do you?
So, yeah,
Oh,
small world.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. So if Holly has many mutual friends with Adam K, does that mean I have many? Oh, never. Oh, maybe.
I would imagine so because
I would claim, yeah. This is,
not.
this is going to end up being. I am a close personal friend of Adam K. Actually, that's what this is going to turn out to. All right, cool. But I'll tell you. But okay, my thing with true crime is, I feel that it's exploitative. I feel like it's almost kind of like. Well, I think a lot. Well, okay, the murders was quite well done, and I feel like that was actually they seem to have an aim, which is we can't let these people get away with this because people are so rich and they're so powerful that silence is really their power, and making sure that everybody is silent is their real power. And this documentary exists to make sure that we don't stay silent and that they don't use that to sort of like sweep this under the rug and then just ignore all the things that they have done. So there's some like that, but I feel like a lot of them, it's almost kind of like, it's one of the problems I'm beginning to have with extremely gory stuff or extremely sort of like violent action movies nowadays, where it feels like it's just glorifying this thing that I don't think we should be glorifying. And it's sort of like the true crime, it's kind of like you're glorifying the crime because without the crime, there wouldn't be anything. And it's like the fact that you have. And even on Netflix now that you switch on and then there's a show called Meet, Marry, Murder that is shoved in my face almost every time you switch on. And it's kind of like, and the word that is supposed to pull you in is the murder. So you're supposed to come in here because you want to come in here, you want to like learn about the murder. Oh my God, the murder. And this true crime thing has become such a big thing that they're not even making scripted TV shows about true crime investigators, like Truth Be Told, which I spoke about the other week. And there's something a bit icky about the whole true crime thing that I don't feel all of them have a point. Like, we want to make sure that the perpetrator doesn't get away, or something like the Thin Blue Line, which, if you want to go all the way back to like the 80s, 90s, which was all about, we think that the wrong person's in jail, and we're going to make this thing that's going to investigate it, put it in the public eye, and then actually got the guy released from jail. Some of them I feel like just glorifying in the murder and glorifying in the misery of, and
you get through, they are like reveling in it a bit.
Yeah, and it
when you
really
look at
worries
real
me. It
murders,
really worries me.
Yeah, I think they sort of make more of it. I think, as we used to describe it in my policing days, most murders are GBH's gone wrong. They're where someone has been stabbed, for example, and by sheer chance they've nicked the heart and they've bled to death.
Yeah.
Or someone has been. I'm just trying to think of the ones I'm aware of. The domestic ones are always a bit grotesque because it is violent. But the most of them are what we would describe as like it's a punch, where people think that, you know, you can take a lot of damage by being hit, but you hit someone really hard and they go down, they hit their head, you can fracture a skull and they can die.
Yeah.
So it's not these arch criminals, they're not like the Moriartys, they're not like planning these. Most of them are GBHs that have just gone wrong, where they intend to hurt someone but they don't actually intend to kill them, but because they were reckless, and recklessness is defined as you have to have a reasonable foreseeable outcome. So if you stab someone, you may not intend to kill them, but it's reasonable to foresee that if you stab someone, harm can come to them, and they could die. So you would charge a GBH with it, you know, gone wrong with murder, because it's either with intent or with recklessness. And the majority of murders are that element of recklessness. There isn't that element of intent or pre-planning or anything like that. So when they sort of make these murders like this, these, you know, they've done this, it's like, no, most murders are not pre-planned, these sort of criminal masterminds. They are people who are violent and aggressive, and they've gone too far. And it's an opportunist, or it's very quick.
I think it's why I enjoy the podcast of Small Town Murders, which is the comedy ultimately, even though they're obviously not laughing at murder or the victims or the victims' families. They make that very clear, but they are set up. It's very much you won't believe how stupid this is, and how bad people were at investigating this, and how awful the lawyers were, and how on earth this could possibly have happened because it's so ridiculous. Which I think is, I don't know, is arguably also a bit unpleasant, because you are sort of reveling in an awful thing.
I mean, I've got this, my only personal experiences is, I mean, I can't claim anything other than a distant relationship, but one of my cousins was murdered by her husband, and her murder did feature on one of these true crime television programs, which I haven't seen. But I couldn't claim nothing for myself, because she grew up miles away. She grew up on the mainland. I just don't. I racked my brains. I might have met her once when she was a child, but I may, you know, it's one of those things. She's like my second or my third cousin. We're not a close relationship, but I saw the impact that had on my uncle, who was her grandfather, and then her parents, who are my first cousins, and her aunt, who I'm very close to. One of my cousins I'm very close to. Oh. So I saw, even though I didn't particularly know Louise very well, I certainly saw the impact this had on everyone around it. So I tend to have that in my head, thinking, I'm not comfortable for some of these ones where they use it as entertainment.
Yeah. I'm getting old, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not comfortable with being entertainment anymore. Like, Holly, a TV show that I think might be right up your alley that I need somebody to explain to me. Have you seen the show called You on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
Have you heard of it?
I have, and
I'm aware of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, every time it comes up, I was like, I don't really want to watch that.
Okay, cool, good.
I feel quite firm with it, and I can't explain why, because I know it's acclaimed, it's meant to be brilliant. But
everybody says it's brilliant. Everybody says that it's bonkers, it's this, it's that. Everybody thinks it's almost kind of like, I get the idea that it's kind of funny, but I'm like, it's about a serial killer. And if you're on season 4, it's about a serial killer who gets away with
getting
it.
away with it.
And it's like we're coming back with every single season to be like, right, let's see who is going to kill this time, and it might be in the execution of the show, if you pardon the pun, it might be in the execution of the show that makes it different. But I can't get over myself to actually watch it to find out. But anyway, I just thought, but yeah, I my problem is I feel like a lot of them are exploitative. I think a lot of them sort of glorify the crime, the murder, and they seem to revel in it, and I really don't like that. I really, really, really don't. But I think if you're going to have an approach to it, the TV show Unforgotten, because what you were just sort of saying, Sharon, about how most murders, it's not like someone who was plotting. It's not someone. It's like most people who are in prison for murder have only ever killed one person. And it's not as if that they've done it regularly, and it's Sanjeev Bhaskar, who is in Unforgotten. He was talking about that and says that Unforgotten takes that more realistic procedural approach of let's try and get justice for this person, and which is why I think it's actually one of the best. I really like Unforgotten.
I really that's why I did watch a program about the investigation into catching the Yorkshire Ripper. And the program I saw about that was interesting. I mean, it's a little while ago now, probably more than a year ago. But it went into the police procedures, things that went right and things that went wrong about the investigation. But it's also in some ways reclaiming the victims. Yeah. Because they often had this title of like, sex workers, prostitutes, and the majority of them weren't. And even those the ones who did, that doesn't justify what happened to them or mitigate what happened to them.
I think
it was almost like. Yeah, it was like reclaiming these women and reclaiming the story that it wasn't about him, it was about them. And so that was the only one of those sort of things that I've watched, because it's almost like saying, this is their story, not his.
Yeah.
And that they're the ones who need to be, it's like, don't glamorize him, remember them. And think that this was the tragedy of this story. It's not that, it's about that these women were taken away from their families, taken away from people who loved them. Yeah. And that they weren't these sort of loner, drugged out prostitutes. They were, even drug addicted prostitutes have got a right to live, and they have a right to dignity in death as well as in, even if it was denied them in life. So I thought, I liked that one because it did reclaim the story back to those women who didn't deserve what happened to them.
I think the Murdaugh series did that well very much with the young woman who was killed.
Yes,
and
Mallory.
There was a lot of focus on who she was, her relationship with people, how her friends felt about her, about what her loss had meant to them. But it is, as I say that, of course, I am mindful that she was a beautiful blonde white girl, and people are always much publicly moved by the deaths of beautiful blonde white girls than they are.
Okay, I'm laughing at this feels entirely appropriate because we're talking about somebody who died. But I was actually in a stand-up. I went to a stand-up club and somebody made a joke exactly about that, and about how if you're a certain type of way, forget about it. You're dead. You're gone. No one remembers about you. But if you're another way, everybody cares about you. But having said that, I mean final thing I'm going to say on this is that on the Murdaugh Murders anyway, was that there's a scene in it that has to do with her boyfriend, and there was a scene in it that kind of stabbed me in the heart. It just kind of there's just a shot. They show a picture while he's talking about her and what he was thinking and how and there's this picture they show that just stabbed me in the heart and I think those sort of shots and they're the kind of things that bring home the fact that look, there's people whose lives have been forever changed, in some cases possibly destroyed by this, and it shouldn't be forgotten that. And it's one of the biggest adverts against drink boating that I think I've ever seen, even though I did not know drink boating was a thing. So
I was just going to say, I have to say, some of it made me cry.
Yeah,
actually watching, I found it so moving, and we know I'll cry at anything, but
okay.